Hey, how's everybody going? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 17 4 key game picks. Before I get into my picks for week number 17, I just want to give you guys a quick note about next week. We are finally now, next week, the final weekend of the final week of the regular season, and next week's video is going to be one of my least favorite videos to do. It is my special edition video. And what am I going to do in my special edition video going next week? It's basically I'm going to go through the playoffs, the current playoff seedings, and possibly teams that are vying to clinch, what the scenarios are going to be, and my predictions going on to what I predict will be the final projected 1 through 7 seeds in the AFC and NFC. Keep in mind, next week's special edition video is not going to be every game I'll talk about or anything for that matter. It's going to be basically we're going to be talking about the playoffs and what I believe which teams are going to get in and where they're going to be seated. Going through all that, and I'm just going to warn you guys, this will probably be my least favorite video to do. It'll probably be my lowest rated video as well because this is kind of a drag on. It's the video I kind of don't like to do because basically nowadays you could just look on the internet, read the scenarios for yourself and all that. But I'll give it to you quickly. I'll give you my predictions on who I believe is going to get in and all that. So that's basically what my video next week is going to be. As next week will probably be my least favorite video to do. Anyways, I'm going to make this quick and short and sweet. What happened in Week 16 definitely was a wild weekend of foot. I don't know if it'll top Week 15, but it definitely didn't top Week 15 and all. But Week 16, we got more of a clear picture of what is the playoff puzzle is starting to fall into place now as teams have now officially clinched. Like the Bengals have already clinched their spot. The Chargers now have got in. I'm happy about that. Anybody who knows me on a personal level, I'm very happy that the Chargers will finally get to see Justin Herbert in the postseason. Let's just see what happens down the road. Also, at the same time, Baltimore already clinched their spot as well. And tough to say what will happen going into this weekend as well as Week 18. But obviously, there's a lot of focus right now on the Green Bay Packers right now, and the way the Packers made a huge statement win against the Dolphins. The Dolphins are already in serious trouble. Tua, unfortunately, is on a concussion protocol again, and it really pains me to see Tua like this. I mean, this is a guy that looked pretty promising for the Dolphins this season, but unfortunately, his health right now should be a major concern right now, given the fact that this is the second time he's in protocol, and I don't know. I kind of hate to admit it. I don't want to say this. I hope he's well, and hopefully he still can continue his NFL career. But the way it's looking right now, his career might be cut short if this continues. I mean, you go into the concussion protocol twice in one season. To me, that is troubling, and that to me could spell the end of could really spell the end of his NFL career. I mean, the Dolphins have done everything. They're already in danger now, missing the postseason, and obviously, they're going to have to go with Bridgewater now the rest of the way. I mean, he is quite a veteran in the league himself, but obviously it's not going to be easy for the Dolphins to hold on to their playoff spot because really they're the only ones left that are clinging on to that final 7 spot with teams not far behind. I mean, they got a big one against the Patriots. That's going to be one of the key games that we'll get into in a minute. And it's huge because it could decide the 7th seed. But anyways, I mean, there's a lot of things that went on. Obviously, we know the Steelers winning huge over the Raiders puts the Raiders now in danger of missing the postseason, and the Steelers are barely trying to fight their way back. Obviously, they were doing it in honor of Franco Harris, who passed away just before the anniversary of the Immaculate Reception, and obviously, I mean, I was born right after the dominance of the Steelers, so I respect their history and all. And I give my condolences to the Franco Harris family. I know it's a hard time you losing one of the greatest players of their generation, one of the greatest players of anybody who lived through the 70s and 80s of their generation. I can't get through everything of what happened in week number 16 because I need to get into my picks because this is it's going to be a bit the rest of this week. Even though I'm not working, it's still going to be very busy for me this week, obviously because New Year's is coming up, and I will be spending time with family after that. Anyways, let's talk about week number 17. All right, let's begin with key game number 1. It is the Carolina, and we go to the NFC South, the Carolina Panthers versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let me make a note to this one here, as there is a scenario for this one here. This is if the Buccaneers do beat the Panthers, pretty much the Buccaneers will clinch the division. That is the one scenario here. Now, Sam Darnold in a big, big, big win last week over the Detroit Lions, 15 of 22, 250 yards, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions. Tom Brady in a game that the Bucs desperately had to have against the Cardinals, 32 of 48, 281 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. First meeting between these two teams, it went horribly for the Buccaneers as they got dominated by the Panthers in the first meeting. But since then, now the Buccaneers have really started to get their groove back a little bit. Even though they're not playing at a high level in terms of offense, their defense is making plays, and that's actually been huge for them defense-wise because they've been the story in the last 3 games for the Buccaneers. And in a game that, look, as I've said this plenty of times before, even given Tom Brady's age, you want to make every effort to make sure that Tom Brady does not get in the postseason because he is dangerous in the postseason. And if anybody, I would say to anybody in the NFL right now, do you really want to play Tom Brady in the Bucs? I mean, the Rams last year were fortunate enough to beat him because the Bucs beat themselves instead of them beating the Rams and the Buccaneers. They should have beaten them last year. But that was a different story. I mean, going into this season, Tom Brady, he wants another crack at that Super Bowl. And if anybody else in the NFC right now wants to make any effort, you want to stop the Bucs from getting in. And this is the Panthers, possibly their last shot to prevent the Buccaneers from getting in because the Panthers would still have a 1-game edge over the Buccaneers, but they won't officially clinch the division, though. Obviously, because the Buccaneers hold more of the winning percentage and the tiebreakers, that's why the Buccaneers are the only team that can clinch in that division that game if they beat the Panthers. A lot of it has to determine for the Buccaneers their defense. Can they put a stop to the offense that Carolina has been put up? I mean, they really did damage last week against the Lions, and they really pounded them in the running game. And that is going to be the key for the Buccaneers to win this game, is that their defense has got to find a way to stop the Panthers' running game because they're going to be relying on that a lot because they don't want to make Sam Darnold throw the ball so much. So I look at it from this point out. For the Buccaneers, they have got to get the running game going to slow down that Buccaneers defense if they have any shot to win this game. But Tom Brady and that Buccaneer team is on a mission. They want another crack at the postseason. The Buccaneers are a 3-point favorite in this one here, and I absolutely agree with that. It's going to be very tight. I think it's definitely going to come down to a field goal in this game for the Buccaneers and the Panthers. I'm going to pick the Buccaneers in this one here. I think the Buccaneers will get some measure of revenge here, and I think they will wrap up the division as well. This is a game that if the Buccaneers win, they will get to 500, and out of that, we'll pretty much wrap up the NFC South division and pretty much wrap up the 1 through 4 seeds. It's going to take a lot for the Panthers. They really got to get to the Buccaneers defense, but I think the Buccaneers are going to get some measure of revenge in this game here. I'm going to pick the Buccaneers in this one, -3 Buccaneers over the Panthers. Key game number 2, the Miami Dolphins, going into the AFC East, the Miami Dolphins versus the New England Patriots. Patriots are a 2.5-point favorite in this one here, and that is about right. Terry Bridgewater, as I mentioned earlier in the video, is going to get the start in this game. By the looks of it, that Tua is going to be done for the rest of the season, and that pretty much hurts I don't know if Terry Bridgewater can get that offense going against the Patriots and all that. I mean, Tyreek Hill basically has been put at bay for a while. He didn't get that much touches last week against the Packers, and that is troubling. If they can't get the offense, they really had a hard time getting the offense going at all last week against the Packers in the second half of that game when it looked like the Dolphins had a stranglehold on the Packers last week. Now, New England, this is really put up or shut up time now for the Patriots now. Mac Jones last week in a loss to the Bengals, 21 of 33, 240 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. And there is huge question marks going into that football team in terms for Mac Jones. Obviously, there's been some players and even from Belichick himself that Jones is really becoming big time trouble. So if I'm the Patriots here, you better find a way to tell Mac Jones, you need to start putting up or shut up now because if they lose this game, the Patriots are eliminated. This is a game the Patriots have to win in order to stay alive for their playoff hopes going into Week 18. Obviously, a loss here for the Patriots pretty much eliminates them. So this is huge right now for the Pats. This is a big game. This definitely will decide if the Patriots will keep their playoff hopes alive or be officially eliminated. For the Dolphins, they would have to lose this game and next week's game to be officially eliminated. The Dolphins still hold a slight edge over teams that are still vying for that last playoff spot. So it's really tough to say how this game's going to play out. Let's see if Bridgewater and that Miami offense can get it going. But something tells me that the Pats, even though despite the last last few games that the Pats have, obviously with the blunder from Jacoby Myers and just getting embarrassed by the Bengals last week, something tells me that the Dolphins have even bigger problems now. Terry Bridgewater's going to have to find a way to really light up that offense here for that Miami Dolphins team and all that. I just think, to me, the Dolphins are going to have much more problems in this game, especially with the game in New England. Obviously, the Dolphins have done terribly on the road in terms of the elements here, and it's still pretty cold in New England right now, given the snowstorm that have happened over Christmas. So it's really tough to say how this game's going to play out, but I think that the Patriots find some way to win in this one here. I will go with the Patriots here. I think they will barely beat the Dolphins in this one here. It's going to be a tight game for sure, but I think the Patriots will pull it out. I think they'll beat the Dolphins here in a very close game. I think it's going to come down to a field goal. I definitely agree with the odds makers on this one here. They're a slight 2.5 favorite, and I agree with that. And I'm going to pick the Pats in this game. I think the Pats defense will find a way to make sure that the Dolphins stay out of the end zone. So yeah, it's a tough pick here. Take this with a grain of salt. Treat this pick with caution. It's a huge game. It's a key game for that 7th playoff spot right now that's still on the line, especially with the Jets as well, so also trying to get that last spot. So yeah, I'm going to pick the Patriots here. I think the Patriots will beat the Dolphins. I think they'll sweep them. I think they'll end up with the sweep of the Dolphins here, which would definitely give them the edge in that last playoff spot. I'm picking the Patriots here in this one here. Patriots over the Dolphins. Key game number 3, going to the NFC North. And it's a big one for the Packers. The Minnesota Vikings versus the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are actually favored in this one at 3. And I would say that number should go to 2, maybe 1.5, because I know there's been a lot of huge question marks going for this Minnesota Vikings team. I mean, look what happened in their last 2 games. They had to make that historic comeback down 33 against the Colts, and then they barely beat the Giants. Obviously, there's some issues going on with their defense. I mean, as much as you want to put some blame on the offense and Kirk Cousins, I think the majority of the problem may be on their defensive side. Their defense had struggled to keep opponents at bay. The Vikings have not dominated or controlled any football game in quite some time. The last time they had control of a football game, you had to go back to the Thanksgiving game against the Pats. Kirk Cousins last week in a victory over the Giants, 34-48, 299 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Rodgers in a big win over the Dolphins last week, 24-38, 238 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. This boils down most importantly for the Minnesota Vikings. The Packers know they could beat the Vikings and the Lions, given the fact that their last two games are at home against their divisional opponents. And this one, you don't think that the Packers are going to want some measure of revenge from the first game in Week 1. But if you're part of the Vikings or a Vikings fan and all that, this is the game that you want to tell Aaron Rodgers, we're not letting you in the postseason. We're already in, we've already clinched the division, but we're not going to let you in. The Minnesota Vikings need to make a statement, and they need to make a humongous statement in this game to tell the Green Bay Packers, you've been in the playoffs for too long. We're going to put you out of our misery. We're going to put you out of everybody's misery and all that. And I would say for the Vikings here, there's got to be some sort of motivation for them if they want a shot. Because Green Bay doesn't need any more motivation than they already have right now. They know full well that these games favor them now in the final games because the Giants and the Commanders do not have favorable games coming up because they will have to face each other and the Eagles one more time. And what do I see going out of this game? Minnesota right now, they're trying to cling to that second seed because it's home field advantage for them. The San Francisco 49ers are right on their tail, and you know they're going to be vying also for that number 2 seed as well because they want at least to have a home game for 2 rounds or to have home field in the NFC Championship if somehow the Eagles were to fall. So if you're a Vikings fan, I think there's going to be some sort of motivation for the Vikings in this game. They know full well they do not want the Packers in the postseason, and this is a game I think they're going to make a statement in this one here. It will be a close game, no question about it, but somehow, some way, that Jefferson is going to find a way to tell the Packers, we're not letting you into the postseason because this guy is an offensive talent to the likes of we haven't seen since Randy Moss. I think that is the key for Minnesota. You get the ball to Jefferson, you get that running game going. That defense has got to find a way to get to Aaron Rodgers in this one here. And if you're obviously I'm sure a lot of you are probably going to say, why are you going to pick the Vikings given their troubles? This is motivation for them. I'm picking the Minnesota Vikings in this one here. They got to be motivated to the fact that they do not want to see Aaron Rodgers in the postseason. And this is the game, their only chance to take them out. Because if the Packers lose this game, they are eliminated. They are eliminated because of the tie that Washington and the Giants have. That definitely kills their chances now if they lose this game. So I'm picking the Vikings here. I think that this might be the end of the road for the Packers this time. I think they know full well that they got to really rely on their offense, and their defense better hope and pray they can hold Jefferson at bay and get to Kirk Cousins. But I just think you're asking too much of that defense to ask. I know it's in Green Bay. It favors the Packers a little bit more in this one here, but this is motivation for Minnesota here. I think the Vikings will get it done. I think they will stop Aaron Rodgers this time. They will stop him one more time. I think this is it for Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he's going to. I think this might be the end of the road for Rodgers in this one here. I think the Vikings offense is just a tad better than the Packers. A lot of their defense-wise between these two teams is just evenly matched. But I think it just favors Vikings a lot more in this one here. I'm going to pick the Vikings at +3 in this one here. Vikings over the Packers. And finally, key game number 4, a big one, a very, very big one for possibly control of the number 1 seed, maybe. It is the Buffalo Bills versus the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bills are a 1.5-point favorite in this one here, and that is about right. Josh Allen, 15 of 26, 172 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in the game against the Bears last week. Joe Burrow, 40 of 52, 375 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was also picked off twice against the Pats. Like I just said right now, this is definitely going to be for control, possibly for control of the number 1 seed in the AFC, because the Bengals hold the tiebreaker if they were to beat Buffalo in this game. They will hold the tiebreaker in both the Bills and the Chiefs because they beat the Chiefs a couple of weeks ago. So they will if all records end up in the same in the AFC for those 3 teams. If the Bengals were to win, they definitely will have total control of the number 1 seed going into Week 18. But a lot of it is going to determine to see how well this is. This is the toughest game to pick. I think it's the toughest game all season that I've ever had to talk about because the Bills' offense here, the turnovers are really hurting Josh Allen. I don't know what kind of decisions he's making here. I mean, the game should have been a much bigger blowout against the Bears last week, but you got to give the Bears some credit. They really fought hard, and Justin Fields really has done a fantastic job. I think the Bears, if they can get some key players and some improvements, they might be a team you better look out for going next season. But this is I think a lot of it's going to come down to turnovers here. Which team will commit less turnovers? Which team will this is a very tough pick here in this one here. Take this game with a grain of salt. Treat this one with caution here. It is a tough one. Given that both these two offenses can light it up and score points and all that, defense-wise is going to be the key in this one here. Who can stop Josh Allen or Joe Burrow here? It is really a tough pick here. And obviously not having Von Miller does hurt the Bills a little bit here because the Bills on the defensive side, they're missing their key leader here. Obviously, they're not going to have Von Miller back anymore for the rest of the season. And it's really everybody in that Bills defense has to find a way to step up in this one here. Same thing with the Bengals. They suffered some injuries themselves last week, and this game could not be more evenly matched. It is a very, very tough pick here. Probably my toughest pick of the year, maybe, because this is going to be a good game on Monday night for sure. This should be a good one in Cincinnati here. But if I'm going to make a pick here, I think the Bills win this game here. They know out of any team in the AFC, they need the home field more than anybody. And I say this, and I like the Bengals too. They probably need the home field as well. But I think the Bills, out of the Bengals and the Chiefs, I think the Bills need the home field way more than anybody because they know full well that the fans will be behind them. The Bills Mafia is so passionate about this team. I think the Bills, they know there's a ton of pressure on them right now to hold on to that number 1 seed, and I think the Bills will barely beat the Bengals here. It should be a good one Monday night. It's a tough pick here, but I'm going with the Bills in this one here at -1.5. I think they'll beat the Bengals in a very, very, very close game here. Should be a good one. I can't wait for this game on Monday. Bills over the Bengals. All right, everybody, that wraps up my picks for weeks number 17 for my 4 key games. Check the description below for all of my picks for week number 17. And as I said, I'll see you guys next week for my week 18 special edition video. And I'll talk to you guys then. Happy New Year to everybody, and I'll see you guys next week.